where the shadows slowly lengthen. We sit in the valley in the afternoon, humming a strange uninvited tune. The beans are ground for a bitter brew to wash away the ghosts we knew. No one is hiding behind the mask. It is a simple and a heavy task. A spoon is tapping a porcelain plate while we measure the pull of a final break. It is not a ghost or a skeletal fight, just a quiet walk through a fading light. The memory speaks of a glowing light, of a curtain pulled before the dawn. The stranger listens and nods his head, honoring the words that the living left.
There are conversations we're taught to avoid in polite company: politics, money, death. And yet death is the one thing we all share. In nature, death is everywhere, and it's not hidden. Leaves fall, animals die, old growth makes room for new growth. The forest does not pretend otherwise. Our culture, though, often pushes death to the edge, into hospitals, behind closed doors, into hushed language like passed away. We're surrounded by violent images on screens and in the news, but a real, tender human conversation about death is rare. Many of us were taught that talking about death is morbid, or that it will make us or others more afraid. But in my experience, and in the experience of the Death Cafe movement, the opposite is often true. When we dare to name what we fear or what we wonder about, the monster under the bed shrinks a little. We realize that almost everyone around us has similar questions, similar stories of loss, similar loves they don't want to lose. And yet, when we face our fears and concerns, we can begin to live more fully and fearlessly in the present moment. May this be a time of courage and kindness, of deep listening and soft laughter, of authentic conversation about death in our culture.
A great tree falls, and for a while it looks like an ending. Splintered trunk, shattered branches, a sudden gap in the canopy. But the forest knows better. Light pours through the opening, waking seeds that have been waiting in the soil for years. Mosses move in along fallen bark. Insects and fungi and tiny roots begin the slow, patient work of turning wood back into earth. What looked like a loss becomes a nurse log, feeding saplings, sheltering small creatures, holding moisture in times of drought. The death of one tree becomes the cradle for many lives. We too are part of this pattern. Our bodies, our stories, our love. All of it moves through the cycles of budding and falling, grieving and greening. When we talk about death, we are not stepping outside life. We are noticing that we belong to a larger rhythm, one that includes loss and also includes renewal. We are learning that even in the hardest seasons, slowly some unseen seed is being readied in the
The
dark.
idea began in Europe with a Swiss sociologist, Bernard Kretas, who hosted what he called Café Mortel. Very human, very informed spaces where people could drink coffee, eat cake, and talk honestly about death. In 2011, John Underwood adapted the idea and created a death cafe model that has since spread around the world. The purpose is simply to increase awareness around death so that we can make the most of our finite days. There's no agenda, there's no program of beliefs, and definitely no pressure to share anything that you don't want to share. It's not a group therapy. It's more like a potluck conversation. Everyone brings whatever their comfort will allow them to. Their fears, their questions, their gratitude, and even humor. Our hope today is that by talking, gently and openly and honestly about death, we might feel a little more alive, more connected, because we all are going to face this, and a little less alone. Today, we're going to give you a sample of what Death Cafe is like. I'm sorry, they usually serve cake and coffee during, but you're going to have a wonderful feast afterwards. So what I'm going to do, I have a basket of Death Cafe questions. Questions are already here? Yes. Yes, and if you have the other two. No, there's two on there. And if you want to use your own question, please feel free. In fact, that's great. I was just making it gentler for you, so. And we'll do more as time allows. So, Kelly, you want to read the question you choose, or you could read all three and see what the group wants to talk about. Very good question. This one's easy to bring. If you had a choice, how would you choose to die? In my sleep. Just go. Should I read the other one too or not? Sure, go ahead. The other one is cremation. What are your plans for the ashes?
This makes my children so mad because I'm always like, when I'm gone, it's up to you guys. Because I don't, when I'm gone, I'm gone. So what makes them feel happiest, I think. I know my dad's, we had my dad's ashes, and my mom has an urn next to her bed. We've taken it places, bits of it. So if they want to do that, yeah. And then the go wish, it says to be free from anxiety. And I think that's definitely, I think all of us, that's the whole purpose, I thought, of the Death Cafe, really, just to be free from anxiety.
Right,
so.
right. And I would open up to the group, okay, anyone who wanted to respond to any of those questions, and the question, how do we become free of anxiety?
Just to counteract a little bit of the kids' decision,
I know.
because you're gone, I would think that they would want what you want. Just my 2 cents. Just my 2 cents. Yeah. No, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Been there, done that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just because I think they would want you to go where you want to go.
I know. That's keeping the ball.
I picked a question, but I kind of have one subject of my own. On public radio, they were having a discussion of doctor-assisted death. And it's something that has been very dear to me, because every time I go to my one doctor, I said, I'm a Kevorkian girl, so let's get that straight. And it's just a subject that I don't know if you want to bring it up here or what, but it might come to a time that, you might have to make a decision on that.
2 things. Fortunately, my niece works in a hospital, and I told her that if I ever get to the point where my mind starts going, assisted death would be most welcome. The other thing is, I've also told her that my family kind of upset me when my mom died, because they divided up her ashes, and I didn't think that my mother would want that. So I told my niece that all my ashes, every single one, and I would come back to haunt her if she thought otherwise, was to be put in a small boat and sent down the Rappahannock River, because for 20 years I kayaked the Rappahannock River and its creeks, and it's where I was the most comfortable. So I made it quite clear to her that all the ashes, all of them, were to go in the boat, not just a few of them, and that she was not to divide them up.
Thanks to you guys for great service. The question about how do you want to die, and Kelly said, "I die in my sleep," and I think that's the big issue, because that's the most painless for the person who's dying. But that excludes the family, excludes the people they're close to. So, I was once tried to write about this a bit, but how people are going to die in 1,000 years. And for sure, we're going to have death. It becomes a big celebration for the extended family and friends. And they all come and they get to say goodbye, from the oldest to the kids. That's the saddest for you, the dying person. It's not as easy as dying in your sleep, but to me, that just seems like the most attractive, sort of meaningful way to die.
I read about this. I don't know that it's in place yet, but it's a death roller coaster. So I'm going to have a big picnic. Well, and then Susan and I are going to get on this roller coaster, and at a certain point, the velocity and the G-forces. So.
Susan, you want to say something about that?
I have no comment.
For those of you who are interested in medical aid in dying, there is an organization called Compassion and Choices, and they have a Virginia group, and they are actively working to get that through the Virginia legislature. They made it out of committee past year for the first time, but it is something that has been going on for quite some time. They have a lot of support, not only for medical aid in dying, help with, and since it is not yet legal in Virginia, there is something called voluntarily stop eating and drinking, which most people, if they're in poor health, die in about 3 days. So it is something that you have an option for, but you have to be sure you've got all your paperwork in place. My mother was a member of the Hemlock Society, which was the predecessor of Compassion and Choices. She had stored up her little cache of prescription meds so she could take them when she needed them. Unfortunately, she got dementia, and she didn't remember that she had them, and we could not give them to her because we would have been charged with murder. But my sister, who died when she was 40, who had primary progressive MS, and at that time there was no treatment at all. She had done that. She had kept her little cache of medications. She sent her a CNA off for the day, asked my mother to come to the house, sleep in the other bedroom, and not to come see her during the evening. And when my mother went back the next morning, she was dead. So that was her way of doing it. Unfortunately, the law enforcement did try to charge my mother, even though she was not in the room at the time my sister had done it. They couldn't prove that she was or she wasn't, but we finally made it through that process. So you need to get your ducks in a row if you're planning on doing this so that your family isn't affected. And regarding ashes, my husband passed away 10 years ago. Part of his ashes went into the Rappahannock River, which was his wish. Part of his ashes are underneath his stone here in the Pathways of Remembrance. Part of the ashes are in a glass paperweight that I had made that has his name on the back of it. And part of his ashes are sitting in an urn in my house. So we spread him all over the place.
Addressing that question about the stress and anxiety that, like how to avoid it. because I think just, like I said, trying all the stress that goes with what happens when a loved one dies. So I know, like for my husband and I, we have a very big binder detailed either for myself or for him, or if we go together, for the kids, all the passwords and, and all those things. And being the paranoid person my husband is, if you're doing the passwords, he updates that every few months and changes passwords in case you're worried that somebody finds it before you're gone. But anyway, to me, then it's like, okay, then I just deal with the emotional part. Or I plan to go before him because it's a lot easier. So he can deal with the emotional part because he's more like Mr. Spock, so he'll be okay. And I don't know, this sounds morbid. I don't know if I should say it, but anyway, my mother had Alzheimer's and lasted a long time. Unfortunately, she was in good physical health. So my sister and I made a plan that if either one of us gets diagnosed, we're going to push the other one in front of a truck. So we'll be done. Sorry, I know it's kind of morbid, but we did a lot of laughing when we were with her. So that's sort of our plan.
So everybody here would love to have complete control over how they go, when they go, who's around, who's not around, that there's no pain, and that there's something to look forward to afterwards. But we know, especially having lived as long as we all have, that just like life, there's very little control in life, and there's also very little control in death. And so, there's certain things you can plan for and hope that they go that way. But when it comes down to it, I feel like the main lesson of life is learning how to release control and breathe and accept what comes and have faith, if not in a God, but that things are happening the way that the natural order wants it to, and that we're all part of the natural order. And so everybody that's come before us has gone there. Everybody that's going to come after us is going to go there. We're all in the same stream. And whenever I start thinking about these things, and I think, well, gosh, I can hope that the politicians will make laws that I can control certain things about my death, but I might get hit by a bus, right? Or I might get a disease that I forget where I put my pills or something like that. So breathing. My practice around death is breathing. And just saying, whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and it's going to happen within a short amount of time. Even a lifetime, if you think about it, is a short amount of time. So, I don't know. That's my very deep and profound thing there.
Yes, we certainly have no control over death, and each person's death is going to be different. But I still believe thinking and talking about it is very important. It takes away that fear or that taboo that you shouldn't talk about it. Quickly, I had the friend that I went to see in California chose an assisted death. And I had been there quite a while before and then had to come back, but I was on Zoom for it. And it was absolutely beautiful. At that point, her cancer was really eating her up. And they actually gave her an enema, or they put it in, ejected it in that way. And she very quickly fell asleep. But prior to that, she chose the friends she wanted around her. She did not have children, but she wanted the people around her. And it really was a celebratory experience. And I think, I know for myself, well, I know Roy is one that he would probably, if it wasn't allowed here, if his Parkinson's got really bad and it was time, he would go to California and have an assisted death, and we could choose who was to be there, and he could be held through that. So it was really beautiful. It's not for everyone, certainly. But I think it's going to be, like you said, Eddie, it will be the way of the future. So should we pull the basket around again? We have time. Anybody want to pull one? Or two?
No, I think one. Hey, come on back. Take another.
Let me give you the mic.
There is another one in the back. I'm going to take the first one. What do we learn from death? The we in the room or the me? We? What do you think?
You
For
started
me, I plan it. I'm ready for it. I don't know when it's coming, but I do know there's some early markers that things are changing in life. I introduced our darling granddaughter to one of you this morning as a niece. Wow. You know, and it's akin to forgetting names, but as some of you that know me, I actually plan to work to 95 and be available till 100 because that's the tradition in my family. And it was, we could control shutting down, but we do not control when not Alzheimer's, but just dementia, which is a normal thing, comes up. There's all sorts of patent medicines you can buy for dementia, but they are patent medicines and they make you feel better and they make the person that's making his living that way feel a whole lot better. So, you want to add anything to this?
I'm thinking many thoughts, but if I want to walk, I have to pick up a foot and put it down to walk. If I want to live, I have to be born and I have to die. And then I've lived. And I want to live. I want to live this life every day and feel the joy that's in every day if I am awake and know it and pay attention to it. And there can be pain in that day. And that's part of it. That's just part of living. And like the Buddhists say, misery is optional. They have a first line on that one. Does anybody know it? Anyway, pain is a part of life. Pain is essential.
But suffering is not.
And suffering is optional.
Yes.
I choose happiness. I choose happiness. And yet I live with pain because of the rheumatoid arthritis every day. And yet most days I'm not aware, I don't even know that it's there unless somebody says, how you doing? And I'm thinking, oh, not so well. But I am. I'm always. So a lot of this is optional. And I wasn't aware of my birth. I have cells in my body that know it was a gentle, happy experience. But I would like to be aware of my death. And if I had a choice. But however it goes, I don't fear death at all. And it's just a part of the journey. I don't know what's beyond it, or if there's nothing beyond it, I don't really care because I'm ready for the journey. I'm ready for the experience, whatever happens.
And you're a living example of that joy and happiness you carry through. Anyone else?
Well, I hate to say something twice, but I was intrigued by this idea of the purpose of death. And I don't believe there is any inherent purpose in the universe. You know, it's sort of an existentialist idea that essence follows existence. You rather than essence precedes existence. So we find our own purpose, and I think this is since it's a universal experience. Everyone at some point in their life becomes aware that they're going to die and accepts it. That then puts a frame on your life. You know, it puts some natural borders on your life. And therefore, you can fill it as well as you can. If for some reason, biologically, humans had evolved or some future species involved that just didn't die, they wouldn't have that frame. And I think I'm not sure that would be a better life at all, because you don't have a structure to say, I'm going to fill these moments because they're not going to last forever.
Yes. I know one of the questions is, what would you like your legacy to be? And I think that's, it does give your life purpose. When you know it's finite, it gives you a sense of purpose, I think. Yeah. Any other comments? Let's do one more question, and then, where did I put it? Oh, here it is. Anybody want to do one more question, or are you Death Cafe'd out? Okay. Oh.
Have you ever seen a person take their last breath? How did that impact you?
For me, it was that I saw no more suffering. It was my father, and my mother was asleep in the other room, and I brought her. We were in a palliative care, and brought my mother over because I wanted her to rest, and brought her over, and we sat together. And you knew. And I remember running down to the nurse's station, and the doctor that was his cancer doctor had spent the night because he knew. And it was just, I just didn't have, they didn't want to, they told me that he couldn't have anything for pain, no more for pain. And I said, I want him to have it. She said, well, it's going to slow his death down. I said, I don't give a damn, give it to him. So it didn't slow his death down at all. It gave him that release. So, yes, I've seen it. I didn't see it with my mom. I went home. I had been with her every single night for months. And the night I went home, I don't think she wanted me to see her die. So that's another way of looking at it too. Sometimes people don't necessarily want that in your memory. Thank you. Excuse me.
So I was with my father when he passed, and I was holding his hand, and my mother had his other hand, and my sister had him by the top of the foot. My brother had him by the top of the other foot, and he was in a coma. He had pericarditis, just strep infection in your blood, and it was the second time dealing with lung cancer. And so it forms little vegetations, and they go up and cause many strokes. And I wasn't looking directly at his face, but my sister was. She's an artist, and she studies everything. And she told me that she saw something like a mist or something come out of his mouth, which I thought was fascinating. And he had a near-death experience years earlier during an operation on his back. And he had come out of that telling me that he had no fear from then on of anything in the afterlife or whatever. So I didn't have any fear for him. I knew how much he had struggled with pain, with all the cancer treatments, and that he was holding on for our sake. And we were all very relieved for him that he was finally free of his body. And that day we went to the funeral home. We made arrangements, and I made a crass joke that he really would have appreciated, that we should put his ashes in a coffee decanter because he drank so much coffee. And we were laughing, and the woman came in and looked at us like, "Why are you laughing?" But I imagine people do that sometimes. Then we went to Colonial Beach to feed the seagulls, and we found, he was a person that would never let you pay for anything. And my brother held up the bag of French fries and said, "You didn't pay for these, did you, old man?" And he took 5 steps on the wet sand, and he found a $20 bill that was dry. It was folded the way my father would fold it. It was wrapped in wet seaweed, but the $20 bill was dry right there in his path. So I feel like I believe in signs, and I give them, I pay attention to that. I was with Jeff when his mother passed in hospice at home, and holding her hand, and Jeff was doing energy work and playing her beautiful song. And I was very fortunate for both of those events. I felt like, of all the ways that you could go, to have someone that loves you holding your hand is just the epitome to me.
So this is kind of a taste of Death Cafe. You saw there was laughter, there was seriousness, there were good comments that all of us can think about. I have outside some books that they're little tiny, you can read in 5 minutes, that might be helpful or not, but they're there as an offering. I have them on the table above the little bulletin board. The one thing I do want to say is the body does know how to shut down. And there are definite stages. And there's one little blue book out there that really was so helpful to me when I hospiced both my parents before I was doing hospice work. And it just allowed me to go with what their body was doing. At one point, they don't want to eat. And the worst, it isn't helpful, according to hospice, to keep feeding them when they don't want to eat anymore. Then they get to the point, the thirst that they want, and you just put swabs in to keep their mouth. And then many do a little picking thing. They'll just start picking at themselves. So there's just these stages that I found it very helpful to know that the body knows what to do, and we don't have to be afraid of it. But anyway, thank you all for showing up for this. I know it's not a topic that everybody likes to talk about. Yes. We're having one here on July 18th.